Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are digging into the blueprint of Goth. This isn't just about the music. It's a whole world built from a unique sound, a very distinct look, and even a legendary nightclub that together really did forge a culture out of shadows.
So to really understand how this architecture was built, you've got to look at the ground it was built on. And that ground was punk. See, punk was all about this outward explosion, right? It was social anger, screaming no future. But Goth turned all of that inward. It was about exploring your own head, looking to the past, and really digging into the psychology of it all.
And this shift, it wasn't happening in a vacuum. Not at all. It was a direct response to a very specific time and place. We're talking about a Britain that was dealing with a lot. Nuclear anxiety, massive unemployment, and the whole Thatcher era kicking off. That gloom you hear in the music, well, that was a direct reflection of the gloom people were feeling out on the street. Okay, so let's really dive into that transition. How did that raw, explosive energy of punk start to, curdle into this atmospheric, super textured sound that we now call goth? The sound got way more experimental, kind of sparse, and it wasn't some overnight thing. One writer called it a slow atmospheric curdling, which is perfect. The whole focus of the music shifted. Suddenly the bass guitar wasn't just keeping time in the background. No, it was carrying the main melody, creating this sense of dread, and you had these guitars just echoing all around it. Honestly, music journalists at the time were kind of stumped. They're struggling to even find a name for this new, dank, neo-Gothic sound. Yeah, the name itself took a while to stick. People were just throwing labels at the wall to see what would work. You had Gothic Rock, which was actually first used way back in the 60s for the Doors. Then you had punk Gothic chic, even positive punk. But the term that really first identified the people, the tribe itself, it wasn't about the music at all. It was about a place. They were called Batcavers. Every great structure needs a cornerstone, right? That one foundational piece that defines everything that comes after it. For Gothic Rock, that cornerstone was one single song, a sprawling 9.5-minute epic. So Bauhaus's Bela Lugosi's Dead was basically lightning in a bottle for the whole genre. And right from the start, it just defied every convention. First off, its length. Over 9 minutes long. This was not some radio-friendly single, it was a whole atmospheric journey.
And it was born out of just pure, raw creative energy. The cost to record it, get this, £11. That's it.
And maybe the most incredible fact of all, they captured this entire genre-defining track in a single take. One go. It was the very first thing the band ever recorded, just 6 weeks after they'd even formed. Just wow. So this one song, it literally laid out the entire musical blueprint for what was to come. You had that ticking, dub-influenced bass line that just created this feeling of skulking dread. Then the guitar, all spectral and delayed, adding this ghostly texture. And of course, Peter Murphy's deep, echoing baritone became the absolute archetype for that sepulchral goth singer. It's all right there. Okay, so if Bauhaus laid the cornerstone, let's talk about the other key architects. The bands who took that foundation and started building on it, each adding their own unique design to this growing structure of goth. So you have The Cure, and they didn't just, write a dark song. No, they went on a full-blown expedition into despair. From 1980 to 1982, they created what's now known as their Dark Trilogy. 3 albums that were just this sustained, unflinching look into anxiety and what one writer called spiritual collapse. And you can just hear their journey deeper into that abyss. They go from the eerie, anxious calm of 17 Seconds through the deep gray sadness of Faith and land on the pure nihilistic rage of Pornography. I mean, that album opens with the legendary line, "It doesn't matter if we all die." That's your opening line. Talk about setting a new benchmark for bleak. Then, of course, there was Siouxsie and the Banshees. Now, what's funny is Siouxsie Sioux herself always hated the goth label, just rejected it completely. But her sonic experiments and her iconic look were just undeniably a massive influence. They called her the Ice Queen, and she brought this whole new level of artistic and rhythmic complexity to this new movement. And way up in the industrial city of Leeds, you had the Sisters of Mercy. And what they did was fuse this sort of northern disaffection with technology. They famously got rid of their drummer and replaced him with a drum machine, which they named Dr. Avalanche. This created this cold, relentless, industrial beat, that when you paired it with Andrew Eldritch's commanding voice and their super shadowy stage shows, it basically defined a whole new wing of the genre.
But here's the thing, Goth was always way more than just music. For it to become a real tribe, a community, it needed a physical space. And that place was a legendary, pretty short-lived London nightclub that would end up giving the entire scene its identity.
The Batcave was so important that its regulars, the Batcavers, they became the very first people to be identified as part of this new subculture. So before the word goth was even really a thing for the fans, Batcaver was the name of the tribe.
To get in, you had to go through a coffin-shaped door. The inside was decorated with torn-up garbage bags and cheap spider webs. I mean, it was the ultimate do-it-yourself ethos. But here's the twist. Despite all the spooky decor, the club was a sanctuary. It was actually a fun, funny, jovial place where this whole identity was forged by hand with, little more than fishnets, black hair dye, and a lot of hairspray.
So, okay, we've seen the sound that defined it, and we've seen the sanctuary that forged it. But the real question is, why has this subculture lasted for over 4 decades when so many others have just faded away?
Well, it's because it was a complete cultural package. It was this perfect mix, a bricolage, as the source material puts it, of music, fashion, and community. It wasn't just one thing. It was all of it, all at once. It gave this spectacular identity to kids who felt alienated, it created a safe haven for the quote-unquote freaks and weirdos, and it gave a voice to the anxieties of the time.
And that really is its enduring legacy. It's this powerful reminder of a time when subcultures weren't built by algorithms, but by hand, with 11 pounds, a single take, and a coffin-shaped door. And that history of doing it yourself really leaves us with a compelling question for our own digital age.